Hi, welcome back to the Primal Lifestyle. I'm often asked about explaining blood readings for cholesterol levels, etc. So what I've done, I've clipped up from a recent interview I did with Mark Caldwell, a fantastic explanation of how to understand your cholesterol in your blood results and what to look out for and how to measure if they're good or bad. It's a 9-minute clip, but it's well worth watching.
He said, cholesterol causes heart disease. I'm like, no, it doesn't. He goes, yeah, what do I know? I just have an MD. And it was interesting because the things we talked about in that conversation, he and I'm sure he thought I was just a complete quack. Like I'm that patient who thinks they know everything, and I know nothing. I just know I'm seeing results from I'm watching PhDs, MDs, researchers that this is what they do for a living. Like Dr. Chafee, I've mentioned him multiple times because I subscribe to his channel because I find the way he approaches this very interesting. And the guy and the fact that he's been doing it for over 20 years. And I watch, all the normals, Ken Berry and, whatever. But at the end of the day, Dr. Cywes, Cywes, he's a South African, I believe, but went to the university. I went to University of Michigan with his PhD and then his MD and studying cholesterol and its effects on, the body from a health standpoint and realizing I've always been told the way I remembered LDL, that part of your lipid panel and cholesterol, was your lousy cholesterol. L stands for lousy. That's how I remember it. And to have somebody say, I don't care what my LDL is, like, what do you mean? And so I'm sitting in front of this cardiologist saying, he says, Mark, if you stay on this meat diet, he says, your LDL is going to go crazy. And I'm like, so? Because what do you mean so? That causes heart disease. No, it doesn't, right? So what I've learned, and I wrote down some numbers here somewhere. What I think I've learned, Carl, and it's something that I want to make sure that anybody listening here, go do this if you do nothing else, and then, I'm not saying go talk to your local cardiologist necessarily because they may totally disagree with me because I'm only spouting what I think I know. Um, um, Here's where I'm going with this. Your lipid panel, typically a bunch of cholesterol, has a number of factors in it. It has your HDL, your good cholesterol, your LDL, your lousy cholesterol, supposedly, right? Has your triglycerides, has your VLDL, which I don't really know how to talk about, so I'm not going to even try. And then your total cholesterol number. Of these numbers, what I'm learning is I don't care about my total cholesterol number. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about my LDL. I care about specifically my triglycerides, which is the fat in your blood. So I care about that level. My fasting triglycerides. I want to talk about that in a second. Again, I'm going to get momentarily a little technical as far as I can go with this, but the fats in your bloods and my HDL, and specifically that ratio, your triglycerides divided by your HDL. Dr. Cywes has a video out talking about this specific issue. He says, people are talking about ApoB and all this. I'm learning a bunch about cholesterol, right? So people are wondering, well, all LDL isn't LDL, right? It could be, is it the large fluffy LDL or is it the small dense LDL? And the small dense is what's much more dangerous for you. And the big fluffy stuff everybody needs. And talking about the blood-brain barrier and the cholesterol your brain creates versus your body, and the fact that statins, by the way, and I should note this, that I'm almost off of all of my medications. All on June 1 on May 30th will be the last day I take a statin. I got off my high blood pressure medications, the prescription NSAIDs, all that's done in the past. I mean, over 9 months ago. And I'll be off the statins here, and there's a big debate about that here in the next week. So I've been taking half of the dosage that I was prescribed for now the last month, and I'm going to be completely off. But this triglyceride HDL ratio, what Dr. Cywes says is that you need to get to know the numbers. They become very, very important, and the ratio is very, very important. So in his research, your triglyceride number should ideally be under 100. And I think that the U.S. Guidelines are to keep your triglycerides, the amount of fat in your blood, under 150. And the measurement, by the way, may be different in the UK or other parts of the world than they are here in the US, but I'm talking specifically US numbers. And your HDL, you want to have above 35 or 36, but that would be considered very low. You want to get that as high as you can. So if you walk with me here, for argument's sake, if your triglycerides were 100 and your HDL was 100, 100 divided by 100 is 1. And ideally, your ideal number would be your triglycerides divided by HDL is 1 or less. If it gets above 1 to 2, 1 to 2.5, okay, that's still in okay range. You start getting in the 2 to 3, then okay, you probably should see a doctor, start talking about, a plan to get your HDL up and your triglycerides low. He gets to the point of saying, and I'm going to go into some numbers, and again, my numbers. He gets to the point of saying that in only one case and one case only does he see statins worth anything, actually provide a real true value to an individual. Again, this is a PhD, MD, lots of those out there that say opposite, but I'm picking the guy I like. And he says that's when your triglycerides are high, the fat in your blood's high, and your good cholesterol is low. That's the one case scenario where he says you should probably be on a statin, because that's a very high indication of I hate using words like imminent, like a cardiac event is in your future, right? That's bad news. High triglycerides, low HDL. So what did I just say in terms of numbers? He said in the 2 to 3, that's like you start getting into 3 to 4, that's bad. Start getting above 4, that's really bad. You start getting above 5, and don't even go there because that's bad. So let me read numbers to you right off of what I went back to all my blood work over the last 6 years. So I'm going to talk, just to go back to January of 21. This is almost once a year, but I've done it multiple times a year, but I've been picking a year apart so you can see the progression. January of 21, my triglyceride over HDL was 251 over 68, which gives you a 3.69, already well elevated into the numbers where he's saying, yeah, that's not good. Okay. So, but even having a triglyceride number of 251, that's well above, well into the high fat blood content, fat blood content of the blood, high fat content in the blood. Sorry about that. January of 22, 270 over 60, 60 being my HDL, 4.5. That's not good. January of 23, we're talking 16 months ago, 337 over 61. That's a 5.426. So when I say this diet may have saved my life, he wasn't even talking about numbers that high. So the fact that I was actually considering getting in the pool for hard cardiovascular exercise with numbers like that is, in my mind, I keep saying in my mind because I'm not saying a physician would say. I'm saying what these numbers are screaming is, be very careful that, yeah, that dying at 64 may very well be in your future. In August, I went on the carnivore diet, and I can tell you the last time I got my blood checked, and now it's 2 months ago, this is on March 18th of 2024, my triglyceride number was 71. So went from 16 months ago of 337 to 71. My HDL, your good cholesterol, you want higher. So you want your triglycerides lower, your HDL higher, went from 61 to 89, which gives you a ratio of 0.797. So I am well under 1, into the ideal range. So, and in the video that he talks about, this is a fairly recent video. He says, I can tell you if your numbers are sub 1, you may never have a cardiac event at all. Having somebody who has a history of heart disease so prevalent in my family, and having grandparents who passed away of heart attacks, and my father having 2 quadruple bypasses, that's striking. Even the thought that that would get around this potential life-threatening issue. Yeah, it's why I say I think it could very literally have saved my life.
Thank you for watching.